We're just a couple that loves cars and are raising our kids in the shop. Follow along as we build classic cars on any budget. Welcome to the Fin Farm.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I've got some more flower truck progress to show you. Let's take a look at it.
In our last video, we alluded to some changes that were going to be happening with the flower truck. But before we can do anything, we've got to move the truck to level ground. Every time we're working on the farm, I'm thankful that we invested in this tractor because it has become so handy for helping us move stuff. It's kind of like life with a cell phone. You don't remember life before it, and you don't know what you would do without it. Well, we're going to make some progress on the truck today. The rear end's coming out. We found it a new home, and we're not going to need it anyway because we're putting this on the Dakota chassis. So, phase 1. And we couldn't ask for finer weather to do it. It's like 50 in February in New York. About a month ago, a gentleman from Texas reached out to me on Facebook asking if I would be interested in selling the rear end of the truck. He had a customer with a 37 Dodge 1-ton just like mine who was in desperate need of it. He was also in need of the drive shaft, so we negotiated and made a deal, and now these parts are going to Texas. But before we go about pulling everything apart, safety first. Let's get this on jack stands.
God, that's all we gotta do is pull the pin out? Oh, I see. It's supposed to clamp there, so you loosen that up and pull the pin. It's easy enough. It's been that way a long time because it's all fucked up in here.
Huh.
That would have been fun to have to replace.
This side wasn't as easy as the other side, and it needed a little bit of convincing. We're using the torch in hopes that it will heat up and break free, and if that doesn't work, there's always the Sawzall. We always do our best to try and salvage original parts, but sometimes that's not always possible, and we have to break it and then fix it again after. But remember, we're putting this truck on the Dakota chassis, so it doesn't really matter to us anyway. I'm more concerned about preservation for the next owner if we sell these parts. It was a little bit difficult to access what we needed at the angle that the truck was sitting, so we needed to lift it up just a little bit higher. Unfortunately, it's a little bit too high for our jack stand, so don't try this at home. It always seems a little silly to have to put in this kind of a disclaimer, but use your common sense. It's a fact that not everybody has it. You know, the Impact is another modern tool of wonder. When we were younger and first learning how to work on cars, we didn't have these tools at our disposal. It was the days of old school where you had to use a giant pry bar to help break anything loose with leverage. And a lot of the time, depending on the job, you didn't have much room to get the leverage. I guess it's just another funny observation on how times have changed. How about you? Do you take advantage of these new modern conveniences? Feel free to leave us a comment below and let us know what you think. One thing I know for sure is that they absolutely help the job go just a little bit faster. Okay, success. The drive shaft is now successfully disconnected from the rear, and we can go ahead and drop the rear end out of the truck now.
Not chewed up.
Looks like the spare tire mount bracket is in the way, so we're gonna go ahead and cut it out of there. It's kind of been an annoyance, so this is long overdue. It's not a part that we're going to be using in the future, so it's best just to put it aside into a pile of parts for things that we might sell later on. It'll help us generate some income to put towards the project, and potentially help somebody else that's restoring one of these trucks out too. Some people would think, man, you guys have a lot of junk laying around. But honestly, I can't count how many times these junk piles have saved us when we were working on projects. Need a nut, a bolt, a brace? No problem. We usually have it out back. And that's helped us save a boatload of time and money on projects too. Well, we are up and away again to get better access to the right side. The left has broken free, but we are still struggling with the right side. I'm not quite sure why it was such a pain, but it's just another one of those challenges when you're dealing with working in old cars. Remember that pin that my husband pulled out on the left side? Said, that was easy enough. I guess he must have jinxed himself because that was not the case here. As you can see, that rear end just wasn't giving it up. Heat wasn't working. A large BFH wasn't working. The punch wasn't working. At this point, we're getting desperate, but we're also losing daylight. We've got to get this rear end out tonight. Tomorrow's weather doesn't look very good, and we're on a short deadline. I've made a promise to get this rear and drive shaft to Texas. Well, the rear is finally loose, but now it's caught up in the leaf spring that we just can't get to budge. It's time to get creative. All right, the sun is gone. There's barely any light left, but thankfully, we have light from the tractor. Man, it took a while, but we finally were able to get that leaf spring perch in the rear to give, and now we've got to get the rear gracefully out from behind it. The tractor makes some things easy, but this sure wasn't one of them. And there we have it. The rear is finally out. But the job is far from done. We've still got to disconnect the drive shaft up at the transmission. I think, though, that is going to be a job for tomorrow. There's no more daylight, and it's getting very cold. We're going to try again early tomorrow. Hopefully the weather will be in our favor. Thankfully, though, the hard part is done. Hopefully tomorrow is a lot more smoother than this one was. It's kind of strange to see the rear end out of this truck, and it's kind of a weird excitement that I have to see the progress that we've been making on it. We are one step closer to having a flower truck, and that feels amazing. It's the next day, and the weather seems to be holding out, which means let's get this drive shaft out. So today's job, we're going to be unbolting the rest of this drive shaft from the transmission. Good thing we have access through the floor, or whatever. What's the floor? There's no floor. Remember how last night I said hopefully that this job would be a lot easier than the last one? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I jinxed it for us. Well, clearly there's no floor, so we have a whole lot more access than we would have normally. It was still difficult to get any tools around the nuts and bolts that held this thing on. Almost got it. It's just hanging on there by a thread, or a bolt rather. I need something to pry it off with. It won't quite come out. It's a little rusty.
Lift it up and rotate it. I understand why I'm coughing. There it is. Pull back. Oh, it's still in there. Rotate it again. Center it. Keep it rotated. Center it. It's gotta go. I got it. Pull it back. It's gotta go towards you. There you go. Roll it out.
As you can see, even that was a job. And as you can hear from my husband's voice, we were in for another spell of illness. 3 weeks of bronchitis and pneumonia were in our future. Okay, there it is. Drive shaft out. Along with the rear end. This duo is going to be making its way to Texas for a gentleman that's building a 37 one ton, just like mine. And since I'm putting this on the Dakota chassis, I really have no need for it. So, helping out a fellow dude building a truck. Look what else we found. It's a body tag for my truck. Cool. So I have to apologize for these clips I'm showing you. Clearly, I was not holding my phone the right way. Instead of holding it in landscape mode, I was holding it in portrait mode, which makes the picture very small and difficult to see. And I know a lot of you have expressed some concerns or disappointment whenever I was initially putting out videos with the videos being in portrait mode. It's difficult, especially if you're watching on a television, to see what's going on. I'm doing my best to try and be aware and prevent that from happening in the future.
Too bad. It looks like more cold weather is headed our way. This warm weather really helps when we're trying to get stuff done outside. It's really no fun doing things when it's like 15 out. We're back at the shop in front of the heater here, getting warmed up. I think that's going to do it all for today. A lot more exciting things going to be happening on the truck, so stay tuned and we'll see you in the next one.
So that's it for our video. I hope you really enjoyed this update. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to support the channel. The weather is warming up and we have a whole lot more to show you. Thanks again for being here. We'll see you next time.
It's gonna go to our house.
That's right.